Today we'll be talking all about quality as a team sport, how to align your dev and QA and product with your Agile API team. You're going to hear all about it with Temil Sanchez. If you don't know, Temil is a product manager at SmartBear. He's been there for years. I just found out, so I'm really interested to dive in with all his experience there. If you want to learn how to do API testing as a team sport within DevOps, you don't want to miss this episode. Check it out. Hey, before we get into it, I want to give a quick shout out to this episode's sponsor, SmartBear's API Hub. If your team is building or testing APIs, whether it's REST, GraphQL, Kafka, or microservices, you know how complex it gets managing designs, docs, tests, governance, and collaboration. And that's where SmartBear's API Hub shines. It's an integrated platform that combines all the things you need, like design with real-time collaboration, API design with built-in linting and governance. It has contract testing to help you catch breaking changes before they hurt you in production. You can explore interactively with test endpoints from the browser. No local setup is required. They have a portal to automatically generate and maintain branded API documentation hubs, and you can test auto generation and real functional regression and integration tests built to plug right into your CI/CD pipelines. You get all this power from one unified interface. And the best part, you could try it out for yourself now. No commitments. Just sign up for a free trial. Jump in and explore how well it fits into your workflows and see where it might save you time and reduce risk. Support the show and check it out using the special link down below. Hey, Temil, welcome to the Guild.
Hey, Joe. Thank you for having me here.
Great to have you. I guess, before we get into it, can you tell us a little bit about our journey, how you ended up in, doing product management for technology, and how you get into DevOps, all the things. How'd you get here?
Oh, yeah. So started my career in professional services and did a lot of things here and there with QA engineering and some, development work. I've really quickly learned a lot about web services and automation and using SOAP UI in my really early days. And, as fate has it, I ended up at SmartBear supporting the tools that I use in my day-to-day work.
So interesting. SmartBear had a SOAP UI. They had an open source before many of these other solutions came out. And I'm just curious to know, it always feels like API testing is about to take off. And from my perspective, I maybe just recently I started to take off a little bit more of some more interest. What are your thoughts on the adoption of API and API testing? Has it been flatlined? Is it a slow, gradual process? Or is this something that people don't even know enough about and they're missing out on testing it, basically?
I think over the years, it's really taken off. You could see it just by the amount of different flavors of APIs that you see in the industry, right? As I mentioned, I worked with web services initially, right? It was all about service-oriented architecture. And then that, quickly became, people had to find easier ways to use APIs. So you saw what REST took off, and then there was a problem with REST. There was no standard definition, and that's when Swagger came on. And nowadays we see newer protocols or newer ways of interfacing with backend systems and data, right? We see GraphQL and event-driven services. So there's a huge need for, exposing data and functionality. And APIs have really not gradually, I'd say tremendously, increase in usage.
I guess another thing that always fascinated me is IoT's always been a dream that hasn't taken off. And it seems like APIs and IoT are slightly pretty much tied together, I would think. And I would think in the future, I know a lot, I was talking to someone at a healthcare company, a lot of these mobile devices, a lot of things are coming out. The FDA is allowing things to come out that allows you to, check things from different devices that are not traditional, computers per se. That's going to require more APIs. Do you see APIs being tied to IoT?
I definitely feel like, yes, I would consider some of the IoT protocols that are used APIs. I think the biggest issue with that is data exposure and security and vulnerability concerns in the industry. Once, we figure out a good way to transfer data from IoT devices to others without being fully vulnerable, I think things will take off a little more and they'll become a little bit more attached to APIs, the way we see them today.
Absolutely. So inherently, are APIs more unsecure I know I've talked to a lot of people that say a lot of people don't realize how people can hack into your API because you can't see it. People think you can't get to it, but a lot of people can do sniffers and all these other techniques. So do you see security as being still a concern when people are doing API development?
So it has been a concern. It is a concern. That's why there's layers of security over APIs as we know them today, especially with the most types of used APIs. Like there's definitely, different authentication, multi-factor authentication that happens and different algorithms for securing who's connecting to the APIs. So you'll see layers upon layers of these services to ensure that APIs are secure. It's been a concern, but I think the industry has done a good job of making sure they're doing the right things to put them behind walls so that, again, they're not accessed as easily.
Nice. So I don't know if I've ever heard of an Agile API team. Is this like a microservices team or like what's an Agile API team?
So I wouldn't think of that any differently from a regular team, except that it's focused around APIs. In this day and age, we've heard breaking down the monoliths for ages now. That means that product teams and development teams sometimes just focus on these microservices. And, that's why we see that.
Great. So, it's slightly different, I guess. So if someone's working with APIs and development, are there any common, I don't know, collaboration breakdowns you may see between devs, QA, and product teams when they're trying to really build APIs, in an agile type of environment?
Yeah, I see a lot of issues with fragmented feedback loops and developers in general and QA engineers working in different platforms using different tools. So this becomes really difficult to deliver great software sometimes. So that's very common.
So is the reason why, and once again, I just assume with an API, you may be consuming an API and a team may not know you're consuming their API. You may have multiple APIs talking to one another. You might not even know. Where with maybe like if you're doing functional UI testing, pretty much what you're using. Does that make it harder to collaborate or even communicate if you're between teams?
Oh yes. So it definitely makes it very, very difficult. Sometimes testers aren't even part of the initial stages of these conversations of these API. So it definitely feels like eventually there'll be incomplete coverage, late stage bugs, and unnecessary feedback loops.
So I know a lot of teams, regardless of what they're doing, there's always this push between technical and non-technical roles. But with API testing, is there a way you could build maybe a bridge or to get over the gap between technical and non-technical roles when you're working across, say, an API lifecycle?
Yes, I think one of the great things is to use platforms that are non-technical friendly. There's tools now that take in, for example, an OES definition and generate easy to read documentation. And there are cohesive platforms that really bulk this out in a really visual way for any for just about anybody. And one of the most important things is that these assets. And when I say assets, I mean like testing assets, documentation assets, design assets are viewed in a very cohesive manner. And you could even see the lifecycle changes of the API across these platforms. So that's really important to really bridge that gap.
Another thing I would think is it's hard when you don't have maybe a platform that everyone can go to. So back in the day, I used to use SOAP UI. It was local on my desktop. I do a request, get a response back, test the result, and then it wasn't like a full life cycle type of thing throughout the SDLC for testing an API. Throughout all the different areas that you need to do it. Over the years, has SmartBear built anything to do more comprehensive, maybe life cycle of API testing along the way? And maybe you could break down how it fits within SmartBear nowadays, how a team could bridge the gap using maybe a platform to help them with that.
Yeah, so there's definitely many tools out in the industry, and SmartBear is definitely one of the biggest components of trying to bring teams together in a cohesive manner. We really recently earlier this year, we released what is called the API Hub. And it really consists of a couple of different areas, right? There's design, the design phase, which helps users generate governance, create governance and standardization across your design portfolio when you're building APIs. Then we also bring in there the documentation piece with a product called Portal that helps you, define what these APIs do in a meaningful manner so that it can be adopted and easily viewed, right? And if a developer is trying to consume an API, he knows exactly how to consume it, how to authenticate into it, what type of data structures it supports. It also has an exploration feature, which allows you to interact with APIs really quickly. Again, this is, when interacting with APIs or trying to consume them, it's like a trial and error phase to really ensure how to use it. And then we have contract testing, which should never be an afterthought, right? Contract testing ensures that there are no break-in changes when you deploy new versions of your APIs to your existing consumers. And lastly, we have a testing capability in there as well that allows you to create really quick automated tests and pass them through your CI/CD pipeline. All these capabilities and features are within one platform, and we're calling it the API Hub. So it is really bringing teams together and really trying to cover that cohesiveness of the end-to-end API lifecycle.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I think having a platform that you can manage an API through development all the way to production would be really helpful. Is there any piece along that way right now that maybe people don't know that they need, that this hub can give them? Like you mentioned, contract testing. Is that often overlooked, or is there another area that's often overlooked? But now, if they were in this type of platform, they'd be able to really get at an area that they may have not known they had a risk in or something.
That is definitely the hope, Joe. So contract testing is something that is picking up in the industry, and people are starting to see the value. But just thinking, about you're serving APIs, right? And the nature of the APIs is to be cross-functional, used by different teams for different purposes. And in the world we live, there's continuous change, obviously, right? So it's very, very important that you know whose APIs you're breaking, right? Whose integrations you're breaking when you make small changes to your APIs. And that's the exact that's exactly what contract testing solves for. And now having it part of the API Hub platform is definitely will give it more visibility and make sure that folks developing APIs and microservices really understand the value of contract testing.
Nice. I also would think, we always talk about shift left, getting testers, really involved as early as possible. And especially, I guess, in the API testing would be even important as well. Does the API Hub maybe help testers get looped in early in the development process of an API so they're not caught off guard or near the end?
Yeah, so one thing I'll say about that, it definitely helps a lot with that. Also, quality is everybody's job, right? So shifting left, to your point, is something that's really important. And does API Hub help with this? I'd say yes, right? It all starts with the specification. If you know what state the specification is on, and you're in the same platform, you understand when changes happen. You understand when tests are no longer, when tests become stale and you need to update them, right? So it definitely encourages testers to stay up to date, and it helps understanding, what changes have been made to the API so that they can do their due diligence of updating their regression tests and creating new tests and so on.
Nice. So how does this work? Does someone have to log into a portal, or do they get alerted? Just curious to know if there is a change to an API and it affects me, do I have to keep logging in and looking, or is there an alert system? How does that happen?
Yeah. So right now we're working on more enhancements to make the alert system, alert when changes happen. But for the time being, what testers can do within the hub is they can create tests directly from the definition. It creates a connection behind the scenes, but they're in the same context, right? So that's the feature that helps today is you're within the same hub. You log into a portal. It has all these tools that we talked about. You can create your test directly from design. And when changes occur today, you will not be alerted, but it is something that we are planning to do in the future.
So do you also find that this also creates tighter feedback loops across the teams?
It does. It definitely does. And I think that's one of the pains that I see many organizations having today. Because of many feedback loops, right? Developers and QA engineers, as an example, not understanding where the issues is. So QA engineer finds a bug somewhere and says, "Hey, I have a bug." Developers, may say, "Hey, you don't have the test set up correctly." That's definitely a huge pain point. And the API Hub does help with that. Just because we're talking the same language, right? You're inside the same platform. And it's easy for developers to say, "Hey, just log in and look at the test that I executed." Right? So it definitely encourages or helps with less feedback loops.
Nice. So I know you've been involved with API testing for a long time. In the pre-show, you told me about SOAP UI. I'm just curious to know, over those years at SmartBear, do you know any like real examples where maybe a cross-team misalignment delayed an API delivery, or where collaboration saved the day?
With SmartBear products, you mean?
SmartBear products, and that maybe, company had an issue, but using your product helped them do X or Y, or save them from something. Disaster. I don't know.
I've seen this over and over. We've definitely helped your organizations deliver faster software. Again, creating SOAP UI was one of the initiators of like API automation without having to write code. And over the years, I wouldn't have a particular case in mind, but it's just been an overall definitely helpful.
Nice. So how about signs? Are there any signs where teams look for that indicate maybe they have a current API quality process issue that isn't working for them as a team sport?
Any signs in terms of like current issues?
Yeah. So say you went to a company and you look at the process and you're like, this is definitely not a team. They're not working as a team here. Here's an issue here or something.
Yes. Well, the first thing that I've found in some organizations is just lack of documentation of APIs. There's a lot of, in my earlier days as well, like it was very difficult for QA engineers to get going. There was missed deadlines, a lot of quality issues in APIs, just because it takes a long time to understand how an API works if there's zero documentation. And you don't know what data structures it supports, how to authenticate into it, and all that takes a lot of time. So quality was definitely a big issue with organizations that didn't have tools that helped them build documentation, that helped them build a centralized, cohesive, network of assets that QA engineers can reuse.
Perfect. I know earlier in an answer you said quality is everyone's responsibility, which I agree with. Once again, I keep going to this platform because I think it's a great idea. A lot of times QA is seen as a gatekeeper rather than a quality enabler. Because you have a platform now where everyone on the team has a vested interest, or they have insight into what's happening along the way. Does that help enable maybe this team first kind of a mindset for creating APIs?
It definitely does, and it encourages the agile process where you're involving stakeholders really early on. It encourages everybody to be aware of what's happening with the API, what state is in. It also encourages folks to start testing and even integrating earlier by using mocking capabilities that the platform supports, right? By knowing where the API stands in terms of the API lifecycle, like is the definition already available? You could start mocking things and advancing your work. And it really provides that level of quality where it's not becoming an afterthought. It's becoming part of the actual entire process.
So that's interesting. Once again, don't know if this is happening. So do you see developers then create maybe a mock to help them with their testing? And then when a tester comes in, like, oh, there's already a mock here that I can consume. Does it help facilitate that type of collaboration as well? Or is that not there or not possible?
It does. It definitely does. that's what we try to encourage, like reuse of assets. If something's already created, it should be visible, and you shouldn't have to go out and have to rethink. The same things happen in the API space, right? Sometimes you need to build something and you don't know if an endpoint already exists, so you go out and build it. It's that discoverability problem that APIs have also occurs with mocks and other assets. And this definitely will help reduce that.
Nice. I know a big thing also is dashboarding and metrics. Is there any built-in like main like API quality metric, like your 80% green or something? I don't know, I'm making this up, so that people know where they stand with their API quality before they release it.
So the functionality is non-existent, but it's something that I'm personally really looking into. Like the coverage is really important. It just gives you, an understanding of how much of an API is being, tested. Similar to code coverage, right? And unit testing. The functionality is not existent, but it is something that we're looking into. It's really, really an important piece of having it as part of the platform.
Nice. So it's been a while since I've done any serious API testing. Once again, there's always been a dream that you can have your product managers or your non-technical people help you with API quality, API testing. Is there anything in this hub that helps maybe a product manager contribute to your API testing or quality?
Yeah. So our newest testing capabilities is really easy to use. And I know this is something that's sold by many products, but it is something that a product manager can go and take out. I mean, it's as simple as, click in the design portion within testing capability and just looking at all the endpoints and choosing what endpoints you want to test. So it definitely is something that the product managers can do, especially within the platform. And, because of its ease of use, it definitely encourages that as well.
Awesome. So is there anything, AI is the rage. Do you see AI helping at all with team collaboration, maybe that you would start building into these type of platforms, maybe with API design or testing with AI?
Yeah. So right now, the design portion of the platform has a really interesting capability, which is in beta, but the capability is just an AI prompt that helps you by just typing what you want, like what type of API you want, or maybe it's just an update to an existing design, and it'll basically do it for you. An example I have is like I've done a simple prompt of saying, hey, I want to build a CRUD design for an API that CRUD's user and basically generates a design for you. So it accelerates that design process and really helps devs get to that next stage.
Nice. So I know there's probably a lot of listeners that are old-time testers like myself, and DevOps engineers that are very familiar with SOAP UI. They have a special place in their heart for it, but maybe they haven't done a lot of API testing or recently with SmartBear. How can they get their hands on API Hub? Is there a free trial? How does that work?
Yeah, there's definitely a free trial. We also have something called an essentials plan that it's a very low entry, which restricts some of the functionality, but at least gives you a step in the door. So there are definitely multiple options for users.
Awesome. Okay, Temil, before we go, is there one piece of actionable advice you can give to someone to help them with their API testing DevOps efforts? And what's the best way to find or contact you?
Yeah, so again, I think we talked a lot about this during this session, but finding the sweet spot of reducing that feedback loop, right, between teams, ensuring that there's a cohesive experience from inception all the way to deployment of an API. And figuring that out is definitely by using the same products, speaking the same language, including QA engineers and other stakeholders as early as possible. I think that's the key to deliver great software, and to make it very useful and adoptable for users. So that's it. How you can contact me? Well, definitely you can reach out to me at Temil, which is my Twitter handle, and you could also reach out to me via email.
And I highly recommend for folks listening to try it out for themselves using the special link down below. And for links of everything of value we covered in this DevOps Toolchain show, head on over to testguild.com/P190. So that's it for this episode of the DevOps Toolchain show. I'm Joe. My mission is to help you succeed in creating end-to-end full-stack DevOps Toolchain awesomeness. As always, test everything and keep the good. Cheers. Hey, thank you for tuning in. It's incredible to connect with close to 400,000 followers across all our platforms and over 40,000 email subscribers who are at the forefront of automation, testing, and DevOps. If you haven't yet, join our vibrant community at testguild.com, where you become part of our elite circle driving innovation in software testing and automation. And if you're a tool provider or have a service looking to empower our guild with solutions that elevate skills and tackle real-world challenges, we're excited to collaborate. Visit testguild.info to explore how we can create transformative experiences together. Let's push the boundaries of what we can achieve.
The Test Guild Automation Testing Podcast. With lutes and lyres the bards began their song. A tune of knowledge, a melody of code. Through the air it spread like wildfire through the land, guiding testers, showing the secrets to behold.